Kemi Olunloyo, retired journalist, Dr. Kemi. I'm also a retired pharmacist and a retired activist of gun violence and drug abuse. I'm a practicing PR specialist. Today is the 22nd of October 2025. Let's talk about Whitney Houston once more, because there are aspects of Whitney's life that I've been telling you, and many people seem to not understand what concerns Whitney. I'm getting that a lot on YouTube and other platforms. What concerns Whitney with Regina? I always forget that when Whitney was struggling with this stuff in 2002, 2004, you guys were babies. You were 2 years old. So you need to know the details. This is Whitney Elizabeth Houston, a very prominent musician and an icon. And I'm sure you've heard of her. If you're Gen Z, you were not born or you were just 2 or 3 years old. Even I, as a music journalist, at one point had to explain it to my child of who these icons are. You have YouTube. You have the internet to listen to their music, even if they're gone. There are a lot of people we listen to, too, that died in the 60s and the 70s when we were born. Now, this is Whitney. Whitney and I used to play a game because in the 90s, when we were in our 30s, a lot of people always said we looked alike. I never met Whitney till 2004 when she started her reality show, Being Bobby Brown. It was actually Bobby's reality show. It was a show about her daily life with her husband, or Bobby's daily life with his wife, and Bobby Christina, their daughter, and the dog. Yeah, the dog, and everybody else in the family. It was a very interesting reality show. At the time, as I said in my last video, I was the most prominent blogger of that time. Okay, that's why I ended up blogging for Donald Trump, on The Apprentice, American Idol, Canadian Idol. I also did Canada's Got Talent, and of course, Being Bobby Brown. Now, if you want to teach some of you blogging today, you can't really understand how blogging is done, because it's not just sitting in your house blogging and trying to, abuse people in your blogs and all that. You can blog for companies. You can blog for TV shows, but of course, you don't listen to me. I'm retired now. This is Whitney. So people used to say, oh, you look like Whitney Houston. I said, one day I'll meet her. So Whitney and I met, and when we met after the reality show, I decided to put this collage together. So we did this together. We actually did this together. Whitney brought all her black and whites and all her kitty pictures, and I brought mine. You can see that every one of this picture, we actually do look alike. And we were the same age in these pictures at the time. Like, she was born in 63 and I was born in 64. But in the 90s, Americans always say we looked alike. So we had to collage our photos back to back, side by side. So continuing everything, this was the last day on the set of Being Bobby Brown. On that very day, there was something wrong with Whitney. You'll know in a few minutes. Her eyes were bruised. She and Bobby had a big fight that day. She had psychosis. And she threw some things from the top of the steps downstairs on top of Bobby's head. Bobby went to her and beat her up. It was a messy day. They were very late to the set on that day, and they covered it all with smiles. We've ended the fight. I talked to them in the parking lot of the hotel. This is Grand Hyatt's hotel in Buckhead in Atlanta. This was an era. If Bobby's watching this video, he'll be crying. I'm telling you, this was an era that's gone. You can't buy time. We cannot recreate this. So this was the last day on the set, and I told you the history of how she started drugs, her brothers. So many of you asking me on YouTube, what does Whitney have to do with this? There are people answering your questions, and all of you are fighting over there. One person, I don't know who it is, but a YouTuber said, that's because it's a pattern. A pattern means here we have Regina's brother being accused of supplying drugs to Regina, and then the older brother saying Regina is not on drugs and calling Ned a liar. It starts like this. Someone in your family is literally destroying you. Okay? So I had to do an interview with Carol Brown in the 90s. The whole of America vindicated me. You know how you vindicate me in all the stories here? Oh, Ashwapi, she was right. Or Amani, she was right. This one, she was right. The whole of America vindicated me on this one when I interviewed Carol Brown, who told me that Whitney was already on drugs before meeting Bobby. Michael introduced her to crack cocaine in 2004. And nobody knew that except the internal people with Whitney. All I know is I battled this drug thing with her, fighting and trying to help Whitney a lot. And it was more than rehab. How many times has she gone to rehab? Little things. Like on the set, Whitney wanted to smoke. Kemi, let's cross the road and go. Across from Grand Hyatt, there was this corner store that had all kinds of stuff. 2 packs of cigarettes she'll buy and smoke all 24 cigarettes in a day. You see how Regina is blowing vaping and all that, smoking shisha and all. It starts that way. Those things are what they call gateway drugs. Cigarettes, marijuana, shisha. Okay? So this now in 2013, years later. Whitney died in 2012. Look at this, 2013. It was time to talk. Whitney Houston's brother, Michael, finally said, in the Los Angeles Times and everywhere, just Google these things. Whitney Houston brother admits starting her on drugs. Cissy Houston's youngest son, Michael, okay, who also struggled with drugs, confessed to Oprah Winfrey on Oprah's Next Chapter that he actually introduced his young sister to cocaine in the 1980s before she met Brown. And it was not just cocaine, not just the white powder, it was crack cocaine, the processed one that becomes a rock and very, very highly, 50 times more addictive than the cocaine itself. You see what I'm saying? This is the reality show, Being Bobby Brown. This is why I love the internet. Everything is here. You can see what I'm talking about. Okay, I got kids arguing with me on YouTube, on TikTok, telling me there was no such show. Whitney didn't have a reality show. Bobby didn't have a reality show. There were shows. Donald Trump didn't do reality show. That's where I met Donald Trump. That's why I tell you that I know the U.S. president. If I want to call Trump now, I'll pick up the phone. You guys can never believe until they educate you. Okay, and this was the reality show. Now, at the end of the day, I want you to look at this. Whitney had psychosis. Look at her hair. Look at her legs, bruising easily. Look at her body. Look at her bones showing. Crack, methamphetamine. I told the media that death was not a surprise to me. That's me there. It was not a surprise. The magazines, Whitney's sad final days, she could have been saved. When we were doing all this work, the media was mocking her. And everybody now feels sorry that we lost her. This is a photo of her in the casket. Somebody sneaked this out in the private viewing. That's the hearse carrying her body. She, her mom, and her daughter are together again. Rest in peace, Whitney.